TFM's live and continuous coverage of the World Championships in Budapest, Hungary.
News and discussions week mornings.
Coming up in the news at 6 for this morning.
Entertainment in the afternoons, then news again in the evenings.
Nationwide news at this hour, fired.
Also tune in to the entertainment and sports shows in the nights and on the weekends.
It is Boy Things After Dark right here on Nationwide 90 FM.
Everything is news, from current affairs and entertainment to sports, business and other categories.
Nationwide 90 FM. This is Beanie Man. Give it to them. Zaga, Zen.
From every whisper to every commotion.
That's rubbish. The KSAMC cannot investigate itself.
Was Click News really talking like that?
Every news story unfolds here first at Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media. Every sound is a story, and every story we share is news.
The people's champion. Our mission is love. Our vision is love. Jamaicans for justice. The people's champion. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, the people demand. Right to life and security. Oh, what a joy. Oh, what a peace. How great this country could be. Respecting your rights, respecting human rights. What a wonderful nation this could be. Out of many we are one in a Jamaica. Make it a better place for the boys and girls. Created equal by the creator. For equal rights and opportunities. No to unlawful detention and police brutalization. Class, gender, race or religion. We not tolerate discrimination. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty.
All right, welcome to another week of Let's Talk Justice. We were on a little break from our end, and of course there was Olympics. Thank you so much to our listeners for joining us each week. We're happy to be here, and I trust all is going well. We're joined in studio today by Dr. Elizabeth Ward, and we're also going to be joined by DSP Noel Daly. But before we get into the show, let us just join our thoughts with those who are in Clarendon. I think the country is in grieving right now. We're all grieving with the massacre that happened in Clarendon, where 8 people were killed down by Cherry Lane, and unfortunately one of those persons include 7-year-old Aidan Bartley. We're also learning that the number of persons who were injured, it has increased to 11, and that includes a 1-year-old child in that, and I think an 8-year-old as well. We strongly denounce what can only be described as an act of brutality. It's an outright attack not only on the state, but on the citizens who were sure in Clarendon now they're living in fear. And we welcome the announcement by DCP Fitz Bailey that there would be more police presence in the community. And with that, we hope that any possible act of reprisal will not happen as a result of more police being in the community. And I think here from JFJ, we join the call for the citizens to be provided with some counseling, some psychosocial support, perhaps through the victim support unit of the Ministry of Justice. And however we can help here, we certainly will. And, you know, we just encourage those who perhaps may be aware of any information that can support the police during the course of their investigation to reach out to the law enforcement, help them to do their work, because certainly those who have committed this violent act, they should be brought to justice. And as we echo the call for persons to be brought to justice, we want to ensure, nevertheless, that despite how alarming, egregious this particular act is, it's done in a lawful manner. And with that, we do support the curfews and the other measures announced by DCP Bailey earlier in keeping with the Jamaica Constabulary Force Act. So we grieve with those in Clarendon and the families of those who were killed, and we wish a speedy recovery for those who were injured. And just last week again, there was another video emerging on social media where a police, during a routine traffic stop, was mowed down by a motorist. Now, we encourage people that when you are interacting with police officers who are carrying out their lawful duties, to be respectful. And I don't know how to describe what could have been going through that person's mind, why they think that was something that they could do and get away with it. We're being told that the person is now in police custody and will be charged for the offense of what he did with mowing down the police, and I'm happy to hear that the police officer is recovering well. So we stand with the officers who are carrying out their lawful duties, and I want to encourage citizens that claiming your rights does not equate to you violating the rights of officers, and in this respect, it would be against the police. So I encourage citizens to be mindful of what they're doing. So let's get into the show for today. We're going to be having two topics for discussion. As we're talking about crime and so on, we're seeing increased youth involvement in crime in the country. And last week, we got a press release from Indicom. So let's take the break a little early, and then when we return, we just have the full discussion up to 1:30.
Looking to rent a fully operational production studio? Then Nationwide 90 FM has got you covered. We have flexible options to meet your recording needs any day of the week. Monday to Fridays, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays available upon request. Bookings must be made in advance. Call us today at 630-1210. Let us help you reach your production desires.
Catch the E-Zone with me, the Stinger Honeybee, alongside
Kareem Boy Ting.
as we turn up the heat
in the street. New show.
New vibes.
Same us.
Same us.
Monday to Friday, 3 to 5 p.m.
Right here on Nationwide 90 FM.
We'll bring you entertainment news.
We'll take away your Monday blues.
You don't want to miss a week with us.
We'll talk health.
Well,
jump into the mix.
or the hot seat.
Don't miss the brain buster.
Or the crazy giveaways.
I mean, is this planet Earth?
Is it?
I don't know. Let me check. Either way, it's got a buzz.
And a bug at it.
Ow.
All right, welcome back to Let's Talk Justice. We're discussing the state of affairs of our children and youth as perpetrators of crime, youth involvement in crime, and just to acknowledge our donor, the UNDP, who is ensuring that we are able to speak on these important topics. We're joined by DSP Noel Daly. He's a technical officer down by the Kingston Western Division. Mr. Daly is online? Not as yet. And we're also joined in studio. We're happy to have her, Dr. Elizabeth Ward, Chairperson of Violence Prevention Alliance. Yes, Dr. Ward?
Yes, pleased to be here with you.
All right, thank you so much. Until we are joined by DSP Daly, Dr. Ward, we heard some alarming statistics from Fitz Bailey earlier, DCP. For example, he revealed that 1,846 persons under the age of 18 were responsible for some 10,000 incidents of assaults, and approximately 7,000 were implicated for firearm offenses. He was speaking recently at the Magate High School in St. Elizabeth, and he also indicated that more than 3,600 adolescents were killed by their peers. So when you look at some of these statistics, given your area of expertise, what jumps out at you that you would want to start out for our listeners?
Well, really, first of all, I'd really like to say that, cannot say about Clarendon and the work that we're going to have to do to try and heal that event, the effects of that event on those directly affected and all of those, and the children and the families of those affected. And we need to start now, and we need it. As we would say in medicine, we need intensive care, not just in the hospitals, which are overburdened now, but also in the communities. And we have to be in it for the longer term, because this doesn't go away.
Yeah.
And it's not... and we've been seeing this trend of young people being more and more involved at a younger age. And we know that what happens is that there's a lot of trauma in our society. There's a lot of believing in severe punishment, and also, when children are bad or violent, more violence is given to them. But we need to understand what happens with trauma. It's either...
1 second, Dr. Ward. Let us take the time signal and then you finish the thought.
Music users, a license from JCAP is a must for the use of music for entertainment purposes. Respect the music, respect the creators, play by the rules. The time by Jamaica Association of Composers, Authors and Publishers Limited is
1:15. All right, Dr. Ward, finish your thought. DSP Daly is with us, so finish your thought.
Yeah, we have to manage the trauma, which is either fight or flight.
Yes.
And we though can calm the individuals affected by reaching out and providing services, and we need to do that for all the members and all the surrounding areas.
Yes. DSP Noel Daly, thank you so much for joining.
You're welcome.
If you could just describe for the listeners, not statistics now, if you have them, that's fine, but just a general sense of what you're seeing as a law enforcement officer in terms of youth involvement in crime. And I know your division, you're doing some very good work in some preventive measures there. So if you could walk us through that as well.
All right. I'm DSP Noel Daly. I'm the territorial officer, not the technical officer. The territorial officers.
Yes.
Territorial officer, Kingston Western Division. So we deal with the community intervention, the safe school programs, and so on and so forth. So as Jamaica all know, it's an open secret that our youth are involved in crime. And some of them have been recruited by the gang from a very early age.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we know that most of our youth live within the community where the gang is, and so it's not easy for the gang to recruit them. And some of them have been indoctrinated from a very early age, or what we call the age of innocence. And some of them start by being simply look out for the gangs, to look if members of the security force are coming. And from that early stage, sometimes these youths are not aware of what they're asked to do as being a lookout. And then after a while, they are elevated to a higher position within the gangs, sometimes unaware to their family members. And some of our youths, being in the gang is generational. The grandfather was a member of the gang, the father, and so on. So sometimes it becomes easy. And different youths join gangs for different reasons. Some of them because they want to feel a sense of belonging. Sometimes they want to feel loved, and the gang sometimes offer them that level of camaraderie.
Yeah.
So youths join the gangs for different reasons.
So you just mentioned like the lack of family support, DSP or forced recruitment, if you will. So what are some of the interventions that you have been doing to respond to some of these issues?
All right, so I'm in charge of the community-based community safety and security branch of the JCF. And our mandate is to create safe communities utilizing 6 pillars. 4 of the pillars are geared towards our children, which are our most valued asset. 2 are geared towards adults. So our pillars are, for example, for adults, would be a neighborhood watch program. And this is where we become a brother's keeper, where we have members of the community being the eyes and ears of the community. So that's the neighborhood watch program.
Yes.
Then we have a consultative committee. And this is where this committee is a community solving committee. So all major issues within the community, this committee will chip in and dialogue with our NGOs, governmental organizations, and so on, and try to bring some level of clarity to the community. But importantly now, we have 4 pillars that are geared towards our children. So we have our Safe School program, and this is manned by our school resource officers and our teachers, leader discipline, guidance counselors, and so on. So we conduct the school searches, we remove the offensive weapons and the dangerous drugs from our schools. We conduct school lectures, parenting seminars, and so on. So we try to ensure that our school's environment are conducive to learning. So that's one pillar. The second pillar is our curfew monitor program, where members of the community, they are part of this program, or parents, guardians, and so on. So this program is geared toward keeping our children off the street and indoors during the night, especially. So weeknights, 8 p.m., and weekends, 9 p.m. So when violence flare up in the community and there are gunmen shooting bullets and so on, our children are off the street and indoors.
Is there a particular age group for the children, DSP Daily, just for quick reference?
Right. 17 years and younger.
Okay.
So children in general. So when violence flare up, our children are safe indoors, they don't get caught in a crossfire between police and gunmen or rival gangs and so on. Then we have our police youth club. So this is where unattached youth becomes a part of the police youth club. And the age range from 6 to 29 years old. And we are able to mentor, coach, and offer that level of assistance to some of the youth club members. Offer them their job offerings. And most of them grow up to become police members of the JDF, and so on. So we offer them that level of coaching, mentorship from a policing perspective. We also have our mentorship program. And this is where we target our troubled children. And some of them who are in conflict with the law are on the verge of becoming part of a gang. So these children are referred to us by the school, sometimes the courts, parole officers, and so on, and by parents. So we get other external stakeholders to come in, professionals, counselors, and so on, to come and offer that level of mentorship to these students in order to get them to modify their behavior and become good citizens. Some of them are in a path of destruction. They are likely to join a gang. They are on the verge of probably being recruited. So we try to win the hearts and minds of these children. We try to offer them something better than the gang offers.
Well, the gang offers them nothing, so I'm happy that you're offering them the good route to take. Yes.
Right. So these are the 4 pillars that we have for our children.
Children, okay.
Safe School program, the mentorship program, police youth club, and our curfew monitor program.
Thanks, DSP. Dr. Ward, you heard these interventions that exist not only to respond to youth involvement in crime as it is now, but to prevent them from being recruited. What is your response? Because we've gotten feedback that, we should be focusing on mandatory minimums and the severe punishment. What is your response and the importance of social interventions such as what DSP just outlined?
Well, the data out there is that minimum mandatory sentences across the world have not worked as a deterrent in keeping young people out of crime. And many times you hear in Jamaica, we're going dead before that, so it's not something, and often it's the smaller fry that get caught.
Yes.
Because they have been given a gun as a runner, or, as he said, Mr. Daly said that they were recruited just as a watchman. Then they get to carry the guns in backpacks and through searches and things like that. So, I mean, the problems are multifaceted, and punishment doesn't turn them around. What they really need is something, as he said, that's structured, supervised, and keeps them out of trouble. But very important that they have somebody that they can trust, some kind of attachment to somebody that believes in them, that has their back, regardless of it. And the earlier you put in these interventions with children and you identify them early, which is what he's talking about from the school side, that we have better impact. Yes. But it has to be for the longer term, yes. Especially living in the areas where they're exposed to so much violence, because you see violence and often violence will become normalized. One of the really worrying things is that if they're traumatized, they need trauma management, so they learn not to do the cycle of revenge, and that there are other ways of dealing with it. It's very important that we keep all these children in school, and that schools are not just expelling them onto the road to be even recruited into the gangs younger and younger.
Because you see high level of truancy, and it's not like before you would have persons
going out
and picking them up.
Yeah, we should have same-day calling. Anytime a child is missing from school, somebody should be going to the home to find out why the children. And we have to target, even within the schools, the children that are at highest risk, the families that are highest risk. And we have to bring in other groups, NGOs, the churches, community members, as well as the police. Police can't do everything. We need to support them much more in what they're doing.
Yes.
And the other thing is children are having too easy access to guns and bullets. We have too many guns and too many bullets in our communities. And also their access to guns means that they have lethal method. And they're not conscious. They're frontal lobes. When you're young, you don't really realize what you're doing. You have to learn and grow and, get your mentorship and understand that you're hurting people. They're just joining in, like, for activity, and they don't realize what they're doing to other people. So we have to reduce their access to guns and bullets and make sure that they're in safe spaces with structured, supervised activities.
DSP, we're coming up on time, so I want, for you to just explain to the Jamaican citizens what level of assistance or partnership you would require, because you outlined some very good pillars here. For example, the referral program and so on that you have with other entities. How do you see this particular program needing partnership and support from the public so it can be scaled up, strengthened, better resourced?
Well, in addition to what we have, the pillars I've discussed, we have other initiatives that we use, but financing has always been a challenge in assisting, because we have a behavioral conditional program where, as the doctor said, We have children who go to school, but they don't attend classes. So we have a partnership, we have a behavioral conditional program where, in the same way like within the court system, persons are granted bail, are given condition of bail, and they are reported to the police. We have something similar within our schools, where the children attend school, but they don't attend classes. So what they do, we ask the teachers, and it's a partnership between the parents, the teachers, and us. We each time they go to class, the teacher sign the book. So when they visit us on that visit, we check the book to see if they actually attend classes. And then we speak to the parents to see if they are indoors during the night. So we monitor them to ensure that they actually attend school. But some of our programs need like financial support. So if persons are interested and really want to help us impact our children, because we are going all out now to assist our children to become better adults, to modify their behavior. So when they grow up and become adults, we don't have them to deal with on the other side of the law. But financing is always a challenge, you know. We have donors who come on board sometimes, but we can't keep pressuring those donors.
No, man, pressure. Who can they call though? DSP?
Well, they can call the Denton Police Station. They can ask the DSP Daily. They can ask Mr. Michael Phipps, the divisional commander for this division. They can visit the station and talk to the CSS office.
Okay.
I'm in charge of the CSS office. Just come to Denton, talk to us. Other divisions have similar programs. And sometimes they're really, really struggling financially. So if donors want to come on board, we'd really, really appreciate that.
All right. Thanks, DSP. Dr. Ward, last word to you before we close out. Importance of social interventions.
Yeah, we need to have wraparound services for these troubled children. We need to make sure that they're protected almost 24 hours a day and give them that attachment and structured activities to keep them and move them forward. I've seen so many, and DSP will tell you as well, when they get the right services and access to them, over the longer term, they really turn around. And sometimes you see the most amazing leaders and people to give back and guide us in how we keep other children safe.
Yes. And future police officers as well.
No, that's not the only way. But they because often you children who are traumatized need more gentle activities.
I'm just saying future
involved.
police officers based on what DSP said earlier. All right, thank you so much. We're going to be joined by Mr. Hamish Campbell of Indicom after the break, but we extend our gratitude to DSP Noel Daly, Territorial Officer for the Kingston Western Division, and Dr. Elizabeth Ward, the Chair of the Violence Prevention Alliance of Jamaica, for joining us in studio. Thank you so much to you both.
Nationwide, 90 FM is an affordable medium to advertise your business. Increase your sales with Nationwide's reasonably priced advertising packages customized to suit your pocket. Contact our sales department today at 630-1210 or 630-1216. That's 630-1210 or 630-1216. Nationwide, 90 FM. Smart advertising, value for your money.
On my mind this morning.
On my mind this morning.
On my mind this morning.
This year, Nationwide This Morning will be sharing the microphone and space with opinion leaders, newsmakers, and society's movers and shakers. Join us weekday mornings at 6:30 for What's on My Mind, where we'll feature several commentators focusing on issues affecting Jamaicans and our beloved country. We'll amplify what matters to you: politics, the economy, crime and security, gender, culture, entertainment, and everything in between. Tune in to Ricardo, Tana, and Saeed and our new commentators every weekday morning at 6:30 for What's on My Mind. Only on Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media.
All right, welcome back to Let's Start Justice. You realize that I'm flying solo today because my co-host Jade Williams, our policy and advocacy specialist, she is taking much needed rest. She's on vacation leave. So that's why the trivia was not announced earlier. Haven't forgotten, but you need the duo to balance things out. So the trivia question that has since been posted on our Instagram page, and of course we welcome the listeners who are joining us on YouTube, on Nationwide YouTube platform or the JFJ's YouTube platform to answer as well. We're monitoring, and the question is, in what year was the Child Care and Protection Act passed? Quite a simple question, not difficult at all. In what year was the Child Care and Protection Act passed? And before we get to Mr. Hamish Campbell, or did you know, which is quite timely based on the topic we just had, and I encourage those who are listening to tell your children about this, that the age of criminal responsibility under Section 3 of the Child Care and Protection Act is age 12. So from age 12, a child can be brought before the courts and can find themselves incarcerated. So tell your children. So under Section 78, subsection 1, a child age 14 and over may be given up to life imprisonment for serious offenses. And under Section 17, subsection 5, a child under the age of 14, so between the age 12 to under 14, can be given up to 25 years if convicted for a serious crime. The only thing that can't happen to a child in Jamaica is that a child cannot face the death penalty, but you can, age 14 and over, be given life imprisonment. It's important that we explain these things to our children. So as we talk about their rights, they must understand that the liability that they face if they were to be brought before the courts is quite harsh, if you will. And also, just to quickly say to parents about the child diversion program, Minister Delroy Chuck talks a lot about it. We support it so that if a child comes in contact or conflict with the law for minor offenses, and then for even more serious offenses, the judge can use their discretion to divert that child away from the criminal justice system. Very, very important. I see Carlene Smith saying 2004. Vanessa, who is not with us in studio, will check and see if Carlene was the first person to correctly answer. But Mr. Hamish Campbell?
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining. You, Indicom released a press release last week, and there are some elements of it I want to probe. But if you could just quickly summarize the press release for the listeners in terms of the importance of the 100th fatal shooting for 2024, and then the context for that planned operations bit that has been drawing some discussion on social media.
Yes, certainly. Well, the press release had its main aim to notify and identify that last week the 100th person had been shot and killed by the security forces up until last week. And it is a high number, and we've seen in the last 4 years the fatal shootings at every year end increasing on. And we didn't used to reach 100 people being killed by the security forces until late September, October, and sometimes not until November, December. So we raised it up as a point of transparency and for people to be aware, and the police service, that these figures are high. They're too high, but 100 seems an awful sort of celebration, but a marker that 100 people, citizens, have been killed by the police so far up until the end of July. And on the back of that particular point, when I joined Indicom back in 2013-14, it was clear that the greater majority of fatal shootings occurred in what were known as, and still are known as, planned police operations.
Yes.
Some 30 to 40%, up to 38, 40% of all fatalities were a planned operation. We considered, myself and Mr. Williams, as was the commissioner there, and that is an odd feature of the fatal shootings. And so this 100th fatal this year, we looked again, and we monitor it all the time. Planned policing planned operations where fatalities have occurred this year have reached now, I think it's 34%, we said.
Yes.
Which is significant because last year and the year before and the year before that, fatalities arising out of a planned operation were down below 20%. 1 year, 11%, 10%. And so myself and others have always maintained that where the planned operations increase, so too will the fatalities. So those two features are significant markers in the analysis of what the Commission does in terms of trying to determine and assess the use of force, sometimes the excessive use of force, and the necessity for such force across the island, but primarily the Jamaican Constabulary.
Mr. Campbell, from JFJ's standpoint, and you can correct me if we're wrong in our assessment here, but from our vantage point, the purpose of planned operations is that the police is acting on intelligence. You are there to ensure that based on that intelligence-based policing, you are able to arrest persons, bring them before the criminal justice system. So therefore, one would expect with planned operations, unless you meet upon some gunfire, then there should be decreased fatalities because it's not spur of the moment, so to speak. That's our assessment. But from Indicom's vantage point, what exactly is the issue? Because people want more planned operations. So why is there a challenge to say planned operations and increased fatal shootings?
Well, your observation is primarily correct, because come back a bit. There's only, in all policing environments and forces, there's primarily two overarching parameters for shootings by the police. One is spontaneous, and the words explains itself, and the other is planned. And a significant number of shootings, the great majority really, are spontaneous. That is, officers on patrol suddenly encountering or meeting a person who is armed, dangerous, threatening life or others, and you're reacting primarily on your own, or maybe with one other colleague, to an incident and responding to that. The planned operation is exact opposite. You have time and efficiency of staff, equipment, and tactics to prepare what it is you seek to do, which is primarily to arrest people, search premises for stolen goods, people themselves or whatever. And therefore, it's planned. It has a more sophisticated and a more strategic approach. All police forces are engaged daily in arresting people, and they have to have proper plans. And so, back in 2013, when we wrote the first report on planned operations command responsibility, we identified it was a command issue. It was responsibility of the police force at a strategic level to manage these planned operations. It wasn't for constables and sergeants and corporals to be engaged in embarking on planned operations on their own or seeking to achieve them on their own. They require senior officers being present and operating and bringing warrants. And to be fair, since 2013 when we raised it, and 2014-15 we introduced that we would inquire of the police their own use of force, their own forms and their own planning. We would demanded to see their plans, their copy of their warrants, their tactical. We have seen almost 100% compliance from as far back as 2016-17, but there's a caveat to that. So they did improve their approach to planned operations and were therefore being held to more accountability by us.
Yes.
And that's when planned operation fatalities decreased.
Yes.
And they fell because, as you say, the idea is if the purpose is to arrest someone and bring them before the court because they've done whatever they've done, then the killing of that person means it's a failed operation in its purest sense. It's surely not the purpose and the aim of the police to enter all these premises and to kill people. Of course not. But if that's the outcome, then these operations have failed in their main aim. And that is to bring these individuals before the courts with the evidence and let the courts sentence them to however many years, life, 20, 25, 30. That's the purpose of arresting them.
And thanks, Mr. Campbell, because as our listeners are joining us, I think it's important that we make this clear that one, Indicom nor JFJ, none of these agencies are saying that if the police is confronted by violence, there's threat to life, that the police ought not to defend themselves. That's very clear. But if you have planned operations based on intelligence, then I think there are reasonable questions to ask why there is an increased fatality in those operations. And I think it's increasingly concern for us at JFJ, Mr. Campbell, and listeners, because of the lack of the body-worn cameras. So when citizens are saying that, this person was innocent, for example, the matter, and we're not saying definitively that this is the case, I'm just raising it as an example, the one in Spanish Town recently, there is no footage that I'm aware of that has since been shared with Indicom or any of these planned operations. You can correct me here, but what is Indicom's concern about the lack of the body-worn cameras?
Well, our concern with the absence of body-worn cameras is, again, as long as our concern with planned operations. And the position is, there has always been, and continues right to this day and last week and the week before, a severe contradiction and conflict between the police officer's account and the citizen's account.
Yes.
Invariably, that citizen is a woman, girlfriend, partner, someone else in the house at the time the police enter, who gives a very different interpretation and perspective of what occurred. And that's where we are troubled and have been for years. And we've said this before, it's not new.
Mm-hmm.
That without independent corroboration, we cannot just take the police view and words as correct. And we do have, in other cases, CCTV and other material, which at times, seriously contradicts the police account. Some of those cases have gone to court. The body-worn camera remains still the key piece of modern, it's not even modern, 21st century policing technology, which can be attached to those officers who are on the front line and going into the premises first to record the incident. And then we will see, the police will see, the courts will see, citizens maybe eventually, the very details the police tell us about.
Yes.
That this man, armed with a handgun, confronted 8, 9, 10 NATO-clad M16 carrying police officers and sought to have a gunfight with them.
Yeah.
That's the extreme of what we're met with.
Yes.
We're told time and again he sought to fight it out. Now, bearing in mind, there are some criminals who definitely seek to fight it out. And they will eventually end up losing in such confrontations. There's no doubt about that.
Yes.
But there's too many. What the point of Indicom and other analytical work is to find and observe patterns and practice, if they exist, through hundreds of bits of data. We have thousands of shootings to make comparisons with, to see trends, patterns, the units involved, the individual officers involved, the circumstances in which they say these events happen. Some of them are verbatim, as on other occasions. Some of them are very different.
And Mr. Campbell, we have to take the break, but there are 2 points I want to pick up after. Police Commissioners, Dr. Blake, support for body-worn cameras, and the point that you just made mention of individual officers involved in far too many shootings.
Yeah.
What you think? Pure water we drink. Me say a pure vibe when we touching on the street. A pure water we a drink. A pure fun, pure dance and take. Right now. A pure water we a drink. I could have room temperature. Give me one more. Give me the summer hearts are chilled one outdoor. Crisp and refreshing. We know that for sure. The water we drink is pure. Everybody know. Hey, hey. Refreshing and nice. Hey, hey. The best water you can find. Pure water we drink.
Tune in to Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media. Stay ahead of the curve with our cutting-edge reporting and accurate breaking news coverage.
We are having an earthquake. Oh, God.
Hear it here first on Nationwide 90 FM.
Is that really clip you started?
Tune in, turn up the volume, and listen. We bring a mix of news, entertainment, and sports to your lives.
Nationwide 90 FM's live and continuous coverage of the World Championships in Budapest, Hungary.
News and discussions week mornings.
Coming up in the news at 6 for this morning.
Entertainment in the afternoons, then news again in the evenings.
Nationwide news at this hour. Fired.
Also, tune into the entertainment and sports shows in the nights and on the weekends.
It is Boy Things After Dark right here on Nationwide 90 FM.
Everything is news, from current affairs and entertainment to sports, business, and other categories.
Nationwide 90 FM. This is Beanie, give it to them. Zaga, Zen.
From every whisper to every commotion.
That's rubbish. The KSAMC cannot investigate itself.
Was Clip News really talking like that?
Every news story unfolds here first at Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media. Every sound is a story, and every story we share is news.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Justice. We are joined by Mr. Hamish Campbell, Deputy Commissioner at Indicom. Mr. Campbell,
yes.
you were walking us through the pattern and practice component, which is very important in this line of work. One of the things that JFJ had also flagged is that there were particular police officers, for example, that would, be involved a little bit too frequently for our comfort in fatal shootings. Is that something that Indicom also flagged from your end, to just explain to the listeners the importance of that type of analysis?
Well, back in must be 22, late 2022, we did set out in a report the nature of, again, further analysis of fatal shootings and examined more closely the various groups and units of police officers, and down to the particular, without naming the officers, of course, individuals who have been responsible and involved in sometimes 19, 20, up to 25 fatal shootings. And we did ask for the JCF to reflect and look on that, because that's a remarkable set of circumstances where individual officers, they're not many, but they still amounted to 20, 30 officers or more, have been engaged in so many fatalities. And that represents a risk to the officers themselves. What is it that places them in such a position that they, by chance encounter or otherwise, have become involved in so many fatal shootings, let alone the health and safety welfare issue? So it is something, and we saw a few years ago when the Mobile Reserve was disbanded by the minister here, on the count of officers from the Mobile Reserve engaged in matters which are it's a matter of judicial process. But it still resulted in the disbandment and renaming of the Mobile Reserve. In 2016, we wrote our report on specifically the Mobile Reservers then, and the number of fatal shootings they were involved in, and individual officers which we reported to Parliament on and actually named them, and the senior officers, they're no longer in the service, who were involved in leading these groups. And that's why we say it's a command responsibility, because the police service is not operating in a vacuum. It can't be. It's a strategic organization, and therefore its operational plans to engage in these sort of operations must have acquiescence and support from senior command. And therefore the approach taken requires senior command to reflect on it. The junior officers are merely acting to orders. And so we see that distinction. And of course, as you said, and to clarify it again, police officers come across frequently, sometimes daily, armed criminals, highly dangerous armed criminals with much firepower, and they will be confronted and very likely end up being shot and injured or shot and killed if they seek to confront the security services. But we're looking at another set of cases where that isn't necessarily apparent, and the body-worn camera is what will address the issue, provide transparency, accountability, and confidence for the public to go, all right, then, we understand that. We see this. This is what you've told us, and this is what is. And as a commission, we would be able to support and provide verification to police accounts, which are very one-sided and only have a single narrative point.
Yes.
But we would be providing that independence to it. And you mentioned Mr. Blake, Dr. Blake, has said that he's more than happy to have body-worn cameras. And to be fair, Commissioner Faulkner and I met with the Commissioner of Police a few weeks ago, and he said the same thing to us in our meeting. He's not averse or concerned about the wearing of body-worn cameras by his officers. What we say and said is, of course not. Put those body-worn cameras and distribute them more appropriately, so they don't all have to be on traffic officers and community officers or elsewhere. Put them, or make them available rather, to those officers engaged on the SWAT teams, the counter-terrorism team, the specialized ops, which is now the Mobile Reserve in another name. Give them to those officers. And so when these planned operations take place under a strategic umbrella of tackling serious crime, we will be able to endorse and ratify the position that is frequently said and too frequently counterclaimed by citizens and members of the public who say that is not how it went.
Yes.
And here we are 10 years later, myself personally, I don't mean police force. Here we are 10 years later, still discussing body-worn cameras.
So
when I came in 2013, they were due to be put on the officers.
Yes, because here is we also welcome Dr. Blake's announcement that he supports the use of body-worn cameras. But here's the rub for me, Mr. Campbell. Two things. We've been hearing the support for body-worn cameras across successive administrations politically.
Yes.
We've been hearing it from different senior members of the JCF. So at what point do we actually get the body-worn cameras? Because even though we welcome Dr. Blake's announcement for that support, I don't recall a timeline being offered to the public. That's the first rub for us. And then secondly, Dr. Blake mentioned the infrastructure and so on, and he's way more of an expert than we are. But given that several years have passed, what are some of those infrastructural needs to actually get this thing done? You know, was a timeline offered based on your meetings with Dr. Blake that you can publicly comment on?
Not really, but I mean, in terms of to be clearer for the JCF, there are body-worn cameras being worn, and we do have two matters. We have a number of body-worn cameras where allegations of assault have been made. So traffic officers, the public safety traffic enforcement branch, they are wearing body-worn cameras, and a few officers. So we have seen some. So the infrastructure is actually there through the Police Command Communication Centre. Once the camera has recorded a matter and then it's placed back into its holder at the police station at the end of the tour of duty, it is automatically downloaded.
Yes.
Police officer can't interfere to another location, and we have access to it, and we have asked, and we do get it. Sometimes it can be quicker, but we discussed those are minor issues. So the infrastructure is there. Is the infrastructure there for 11,000 officers to have body-worn cameras? No, but I don't think, we're certainly not suggesting that every single member of the police service has to have a body-worn camera. So just
redirecting to ensure that the current infrastructure can meet the officers who are...
And there is a large hidden behind the machines, just the downloading and saving of that material. Yes. As we all know from our own businesses and just home computers, video takes up an enormous amount of space, and that has to be stored somewhere. So I think that has been a challenge, but it's not an insurmountable challenge. It's not a new challenge for any organisation, and police forces around the world have been using them, so they are in existence. We have seen them, but and unfortunately, which we've raised separately, too often some of the body-worn cameras, they haven't been turned on. The officers have omitted or failed to turn it on when they should.
So it's
really
policy directive that's there, because there is a 2021 policy that speaks to these things.
Yes, there is. It's a very clear policy, and the officers are guided to read it, especially those who've been trained in the use. So We say that the structure is there, it doesn't embrace the whole of the police force, and it doesn't embrace across the island. But if we look to where these incidents are taking place, primarily in the major conurbations, Kingston, Mandeville, Spanish Town, etc., and those operational teams had them, I think it would go to address at a considerable extent the natural mistrust that still exists between certain sections of society and the police. Because at the moment they're completely contradictory. And we have to find a way to merge that two. So there's a greater appreciation by the public and the citizens and the police to recognize, actually, this is benefiting us. Look, we told you, Mr. Indicom, that these men are possession of guns and shooting us, and here's the video. Well, then we welcome the safety of the police officers, and we'll understand that. That is really where we're trying to get to, and it's taking a long time. And to a cynical observer, one could sense, I don't mean this against Mr. Blake at all, a previous dragging of feet. A certain reluctance to embrace and implement the use of body-worn cameras, and there's always been an excuse or a reason or a rationale for why it doesn't work.
We have to leave it there, Mr. Campbell. We certainly appreciate your presence being with us as usual. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Good day.
That was Mr. Hamish Campbell, Deputy Commissioner of Indicom. Before we close out, we are upon time, 2 minutes left. In August, we remember the death of Mario Dean. The pursuit of justice continues by his mother, Mercy Fraser. For those who do not remember, a gross travesty of justice was met where Mario Dean was brought into police custody in 2014, and he was killed while in police custody. Years later, administrative delays on the state's, what you would call from the state, such as missing reports, have led to the trial not commencing. JFJ is watching the proceedings on the family's behalf. We've been told across several trial dates that jurors were not enough for a jury to be empaneled, and we think that the state ought to do better in ensuring that enough summons are issued where jurors turn out for jury duty. The mother, with JFJ's assistance, is planning a very peaceful protest down by Barnett Street on August 21, 10 a.m. to 12 noon. We await the permit from the police to have that protest held, but those who want to support can reach out to JFJ at 755-4524, and we will ensure that you join us. All right. The answer for the trivia is 2004. That was when the Child Care and Protection Act came into effect, and Carlene Smith on the nationwide YouTube platform won. Miss Smith, you can reach out to 239-7583 via WhatsApp, 239-7583, to collect your prize, a small token of a phone card. Thank you so much. My name is Michael Jackson, Executive Director of JFJ. We see you next week. Have a good week.
Jamaicans, for justice, the people's champion. Justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Out of many, we are one in a Jamaica. Make it a better place for the boys and girls. Created equal by the creator. For equal rights and opportunities.
JP said baby's banana chips. 20% more chips in the banana left them ground. The time by JP said Mary's banana chips is
2 o'clock.